some of the same skills we're going to cover today, and he's making $14,000 a month in Qatar, which is not a bad thing to do as a foreign national. And so he says, I think we can double it. And so I'm actually going to meet with him on the 25th of March. And so without further ado, we'll get started. William, clicker. So we call this the 5 finger of real estate. This is what I'm covering here. So we're going to go into some depth here. Before we start, though, I'd like to welcome Stefan. You want to stand up? Stefan Barnard. So Stefan is going to sponsor food for us today. And he sponsored our food here, which is good. Some snacks, if you want snacks and that. And he is a home inspector with, go ahead. A-Pro. And I'll let him talk to us a little bit later, but he's a great guy. I've known him for a number of years through the Investor Association, and we're proud to work with him. So I coined the term the 5 fingers of real estate when somebody asked me once, what are the 5 main ways to make money in real estate? Okay. And we're going to cover those. The 5 fingers of real estate, is powerful because knowledge empowers you. So if you're an agent, you just wanted to use agent things, that's great because all of this is going to tie in. If you're an agent that wants to be an investor, this is great because it's going to tie in. We're going to mix it together because the more tools you have, the better off you're going to be and the happier you're going to be with the more transactions that you close. It's a little bit tough right now, isn't it? I mean, we're all working pretty hard for what we got. So we're going to turn a little bit of knowledge into action, hopefully. So I can help you get the knowledge. I can help you get where you should be intellectually. I can help you with mindset, but I can't do it for you. So once you leave here, it's up to you to turn it into action and to take advantage of it. So why are we in real estate in the first place? Kimberly, why are you in real estate? Everybody else should be thinking about it because I'm going to call on them next.
I was actually motivated by my daughter who was in real estate, and she loved it, and I'm so glad that I was because it's very satisfying and fulfilling to help people.
Okay, so you like fulfill a need, so you like helping people fill a need. You with a great beard and mustache, why are you in real estate?
Why am I in real estate? I love it. All aspects of it.
All aspects?
Helps people, helps myself, helps my family.
Okay, that's good. And the reason I ask this is because it's really important to know what your motivations are. Okay, everybody has different reasons for doing this. William, can I get water as well? So for me, I like travel. So I'm over there on the left. Some guys, it's cars. I helped my neighbor. My neighbor never made more than $50,000 a year. He was working as a CPA. And so he started seeing what I was doing, and he came and every night I get home about 7 o'clock. I live 7 minutes away, just right down here on Temple Dell Canyon. I'd get home and he'd walk over and he'd talk to me. So I got him set up in real estate, got him going. He was kind of a slow starter. Took him 6 months. His wife was a nurse, and she says, if he doesn't do something quick, he's going to have to get a job, because he'd gotten laid off, and instead of looking for another job, he wanted to do real estate. He wanted to be like Randall, I guess. And so what was great was he used one of these techniques we're going to talk about today, and he made $73,000 in the seventh month. Okay, and a month later, he made another $35,000. And then it just went on from there. So this is a great business where you can do anything. The sky is the limit. Actually, your mindset is the limit, and what you know is the limit. But knowing what you do it for is awesome. So I like to travel, number one. So I'm the guy that's probably, I don't know if I pushed this, if it had put an arrow, but that likes, traveling to Paris and Europe and Asia. But Dane, my neighbor, he likes cars. So, he bought a Raptor, and then he bought a Tesla, and he got something else the other day I saw, but I think all his money is going to cars. I'm not sure if he's making any more money than he did as a CPA because it's all going on wheels, but he enjoyed it. It's nice to know what your motivation is. So we're going to talk about the first finger of real estate. So who's heard about wholesaling? Okay. All right. That's good. Who hasn't heard about wholesaling? All right, got a few hands there. All right, well, the second finger, we're going to cover each one and that. The second finger in real estate is flipping. Okay? The third finger, seller financing. Okay? The fourth finger, sandwich lease options. And the fifth finger is commissions. And you can actually tie every one of those into commissions. So we're going to start from the beginning. You know, wholesaling, what the heck is it? I've got, do you want to stand up and tell us what wholesaling is? You've done one right next to Stefan. Stacy, yeah. Yeah, sorry, I just got the lights. Yeah, stand up and tell us. So this is Stacy. Tell us what wholesaling is.
So it's when you put a home under contract and then you can sell that contract potentially to another buyer for more money than you initially put it under contract.
Okay. Have you ever done a wholesale?
No, I've always hold on to them and flip them.
And flip them. Okay, that's good. We're going to be covering flipping. That's great. So wholesaling, basically you put a property under contract at one price and you sell the contract at a higher price. Have any of you done that? Hands, okay. Eric, and then we'll move this way. Tell us about your experience.
It's an easy way to get paid, you know, especially if you know investors like Randall Wall.
That's true. And that you made some money, yes.
I just have a question.
Yeah.
So is this where you're in a contract reassigning, you can reassign it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll cover that in depth. How about your experiences? What you know, just tell us one that you've done.
Just found that a friend of mine said, hey, you get rid of this house, I went out, so I went in. Well, actually, I kept it. I just got one and put it on.
Perfect.
It's just, I probably do it 2 or 3 times a year accidentally by controlling the property with a listing agreement and then using that listing and then finding a buyer prior and getting paid on that.
Okay, perfect. So that's a good way. There's all good ways. So I do this. I don't think I've ever done more than 85 in a year, and I don't think I've ever done less than 35 a year. Usually it's at least a $10,000 commission. In the last 4 months, I've done 2 that were 90,000 or better. So it's not bad, and it's really fast. It's like Stacy said in the back there. It's really quick. You get paid in days, so we'll talk about that. So you put it under contract. So here's a Berkshire Hathaway agent. So a lot of you guys are looking for money right now. There's only so much on the market, right? So this is really quick. This was actually, last month. So I bought this house up on the Harvard Yale. It's right on 15th East, like the corner of 13th South and 15th East. Bought it at $470. Wholesaled it at $580. Okay. That's a pretty good spread, isn't it? How long do you think it takes to do something like that?
A couple of weeks.
Yeah, like 3 days, 4 days. Yeah, it's really fast. Couple of phone calls. So let me tell you what happened here. So this Berkshire Hathaway agent had listened to me talk about this, about wholesaling, about buying property. So he's going by this property, and if you can see this white arrow here, some of you guys can see it here. William, is there like a pointer on this one? Okay. All right, so you can see it right there where it's the white arrow. Maybe if you're far away, it's hard to see. But there's a for sale by owner sign in the yard. Okay, so he's driving along up in the Harvard Yale area, and he's thinking, okay, here's a for sale by owner sign. So he stops, goes in and talks to the guy. The guy's been pitched by 100 agents. Have you guys ever worked the phones before, and the person you're talking to knows the script better than you do? Because they've heard it so many times. So that's exactly what happened with him. So it's like, I've had that happen before. It's like, oh yeah, you must be a Mike Ferry fan or whatever, and because I've heard the script at least 29 times today. Well, this guy goes in and talks and doesn't want anything to do with an agent, doesn't want to list it. He's like, the market's good, I want to sell it myself. So he says, all right, well, what will you sell it for? And he says, well, I'll sell it for, little negotiation, $470,000. So he calls Randall. Actually, it was less than that even. It was like 460 because I think all in I was 470. But it calls me, and I'm like, great, Mr. Berkshire Hathaway agent, I'll be happy. I always pay a commission plus $1,000. So if somebody brings us a deal, I pay a commission plus $1,000. And so for him, it worked out really well because this is how he made a net profit of about $15,000 in just a few days. So number one, he noticed a FSBO, but he had no buyer for it, right? So he's driving around, no buyer. Number two, he went in and talked to the people, and then he contacted us, and we went to the property with him. I sent my closer, Trevor Thompson, with him. You guys will probably get texts from him and other emails and that. Went in and negotiated the deal. So this wasn't, he didn't even have to put it under contract, which is what you do a lot of times. It's get an assignable contract. So we put it under contract, made sure that the contract was assignable, and he got paid the full commission of $14,100 for the 470, plus a $1,000 bonus from us, which made $15,100. And it's something you can do in a week. That's what's really great. So here's some of the advantages of wholesaling. Low capital outlay. Okay, what does that mean? No money. Okay, for those of you who think about it, it means no money. And what's good about this is with these different tools as an agent, sometimes, so I run everything, I'm going to go back to the 5 fingers. When I talk to somebody, I'm running everything through a mental sieve. Okay, the 5 fingers, can I wholesale it? Can I flip it? Can I sell or finance it for a long-term lease option or a sale? Can I do a sandwich lease option, or can I collect a commission on it? It's a lot easier to make money when you've got 5 tools in your hand instead of just 1. Okay? And it's a lot easier if you know somebody to call as well. So if you found a deal, you know who to call, give me a call. I'll be happy to do it, and I'll steer you on. You can go to the Investor Association. There's scads of people who are looking for properties, looking for flip properties, etc. It's a gateway to other investments because you can take that money and put it to something else. You can put it in your marketing. Guys that are smart a lot of times can get a potential for a further commission. So if somebody brings me a deal and there's enough money in the deal as a wholesale, because I wholesale, but I also flip a lot of properties. I've got 7 or 8 going right now. If there's enough money in there and somebody asks me, am I going to let them sell it on the back end and collect a commission on the back end? Remember what the spread was on this one? $110,000. Do you think I'm going to probably share that with whoever brought me the deal? Yeah, absolutely. You just got to ask, okay? Which is always important. Always, always, always ask, okay? If you don't ask, what's the answer? Yeah, it's always no, all right? So that's perfect. And you're building a buyer's pool, okay? What's one thing about a successful investor? What does a successful investor do, must do multiple times during the year? Turn properties, right? So if he's turning properties or buying property and selling properties, is that good as an agent? You guys aren't going to say anything no matter what I ask, right? Okay. It is great as an agent, okay. So it has to do with building your buyer's list. So, wholesaling, how do I do it? People think it's top secret, right? Well, it's not top secret. There's been some ins and outs with the commission. Actually, the commission's never had a problem with it. It's the investigators at the Division of Real Estate who had a huge fit here a year or 2 ago about it until we went up and talked to the commissioners, and I talked to every one of them, showed them the paperwork, showed them how we did it, and they said, oh, well, if other people that aren't licensed agents can do it, then we think our agents should be able to do it. And there's a lot of reasons, and it's not about taking advantage of old ladies, because that's not a good thing. Don't do that. But sometimes people just don't want to sell with an agent. Now, I've sold a lot of houses. How many times do you think I've sold my own house on the MLS? Never. Why do you think that is? There's no wrong answers here. I heard never, but why do you think that is?
You're gonna wholesale it back to yourself.
Going to wholesale it back to myself? That's creative. I usually sell to a neighbor or an investor. And it's because of the hassle factor. So the National Association of Realtors came out last year and said that 30% of all home sellers cried at least one time during the process. It's so stressful. And 30% of those people cried 3 times or more. So we get paid as agents by making the process simple, right? Taking the tears out of real estate. Because who's working with a buyer right now? Yeah, it's not a sprint anymore, is it? It's a marathon, right? And there's a lot of tears that are involved with that. So that's why I've done it personally. It's not like, I like watching Gilligan's Island. Actually, right now I'm watching All Creatures Great and Small. I don't want somebody to call and say, hey, vacate the house for a couple hours. And then I got to go through all the hassle. I got to clean the house up. I got to vacate the house. you know, and then I know I'm going to deal with, you know, home inspections and everything else. So it's just easier for me to sell it to a neighbor or an investor or somebody else. And so that's why I do it, you know, and it's the hassle factor. And if I was, you know, and it's funny because I've told this story before, but I met with this couple and I said, look, here's what I can pay you as an investor, you know, go in and flip the house. And here's what you're going to make if you list it. And the difference was like, it wasn't a lot because it was like $8,000 because I was going to go and put an addition on it and you know, accelerate some value there. And they said, well, we think we really need the extra $8,000. I said, great, no problem. I got in my car, I said, I'll be back with the paperwork to list your property in the morning. I didn't even make it to the stop sign. Before I got to the stop sign, my phone rang. I looked down, I'm like, it's these people. I'm like, did I forget something? And the wife says, we've talked about it. And I'm like, what, in the 30 seconds since I left your house? And we want to do it the easy way, you know, because they were moving out of state. They had a job starting. They wanted to know exactly when they were going to get paid, exactly when they were going to be able to move, exactly when they're going to sell their house. So it's good to know that as an agent, so you give options. So it's not top secret, all right? You got to have a lot of disclosures. And actually, if all you guys fill out the roster that comes around that William's got, I'll send you a copy. It'll probably be like Monday before we get it out, but I'll send you a copy of the disclosures that we use in a typical wholesale. So, you know, things like what might be important if you're making disclosures in a wholesale?
If you're an agent,
Yeah, if you're an agent, that's perfect. Lady in the back with your hand.
That's what I was gonna say.
An agent, that's perfect. First thing is an agent. Also, right after that, what I tell them is, if you want top dollar for your property, you're gonna what?
I'm not the guy.
No, actually, I don't tell them that. I tell them if you want top dollar for your property, you're going to fix it up, clean it out, and let me list it on the MLS.
Yeah, so
You know? So I always tell them, if you're top people always say, well, do you have to like, you know, hoodwink these people? What do you got to do to get them to, you know, sell these properties, right? No, I just tell them, if you want top dollar, and I disclose it multiple times in my disclosures. If you want top dollars, you know, we're going to list it on the MLS. We're going to wait however long, you know, the week it takes right now to, you know, get the property sold or whatnot, and sell it. That's top dollar. And it's interesting, you know, a lot of people that works for, and a lot of people it doesn't. You know, if I have 5 appointments or my closer has 5 appointments, we'll buy 1, we'll list 2. You know, and so that's typically how it works. So we like options. So full disclosure, it's easy. You put the property under contract with the proper paperwork, allowing for assignment. Okay. Heck, we can even send a copy of the PowerPoint. Probably I'll have William do that. You know, if you do that as well, so we can do that. And that'll be helpful. Trusts are especially good for this. You know, I'll give another class on trust, but we use trust a lot because it makes it really easy to assign property. Even unassignable property becomes assignable. I did over 1,000 short sales during the heyday, and I think I assigned a whole bunch of those using a trust. So you can do it that way, or you can do it just simple, you know, and/or assigns. You find a cash buyer who can close quickly. So why do you want a cash buyer on most of these? It's just quick, and there's no approval, there's no, you know, okay, waiting for the appraisal to come in or anything else. I have never gotten an appraisal in, let's see, I moved back to Utah in October of 2004. So I guess that's what, almost 16, 17 years. I've never gotten an appraisal on any property that I've ever bought as an investor or wholesale. Because, you know, we go in knowing what it's worth more or less, because we're agents, we kind of, you know, have a good idea what we can do there, right? And then you get paid, all right? And so the fastest I've done this is probably 24 hours, but usually you figure a week. You know, you can figure a week, and if I'm, you know, making an offer to somebody, a lot of times I'll tell them as long as I can, you know, 14 days, 21 days, I'll close, you know, whenever you want to close. I really tell them we're closed when you want to close, but I can close as quickly as you want. I had a bank call me saying, this is going to, it was actually an agent for a bank. This was a really good deal. But he called me up and said, this is going to sale tomorrow. But the bank told me that, you know, I can get this sold and collect a commission on it if you can close before it goes to sale at 1 o'clock tomorrow. And it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? So I was like, okay, got in my car, got my appraiser over. Actually, that time I did get an appraiser. No, I got appraiser's assistant to go over and look at the property because it was down in Saratoga Springs and I wasn't really familiar with the area. I wasn't sure. I looked at it and my comps, I was like, okay, I'm not sure. And then I called my hard money guy because just because it's cash doesn't mean it's my cash, right? You know, it's hard money. So I called my hard money guy, got everything set up, called title, had him pull title, and we closed it 18 hours later for $270,000 because that's what the bank said that they wanted on it. It's nuts. So, so we closed it on $270. My guy gets paid plus his $1,000 bonus. And I'm down there, I go down and I'm looking at the property saying, okay, what do we need to do on this one? It didn't really need much. Some guy comes walking by and goes, do you want to sell that? Well, yeah. And I said, well, what would you pay? He says, well, I could pay $440 for it. He said, that's my peak. I could pay $440. And I said, well, you know, that might be a little tight, but I think we can do that. So he got a house for $440 because he asked, right? And you know, we cleared the difference between $270 and $440. So it's a great deal. So if it's a tool, if you're an agent, it's a smart tool to be at least aware of, you know. And if you don't know all of the ins and outs of it, is that Dallas back there too? Yeah. Hey, how you doing, Dallas? If you don't know all the tools, then you just need to know who to call and ask. So if you call me or call my team, we'll help you out. We'll tell you what to do. We're not going to take the deal from you or anything else, and you don't even have to sell it to us. We would like an opportunity, but we're happy to explain what the steps are, what the next steps are, because it's important. And the second thing that we talk about is flipping. Dallas, you did a flip here recently, didn't you? You're still holding it.
We're still holding, but we're flipping a 7-plex right now.
Okay, you're just flipping a 7-plex. So that's good. So flipping, the second finger of real estate. So who's worked with a flipper in the past? Got a few people that have. Now, good flippers do what multiple times a year? Flip property, right? Okay. So if you're an agent, do you want to know flippers? Absolutely. Now, things are selling for crazy prices right now. However, there's still property that's ideal for flippers, like things that can't get financed or, you know, they're in really poor shape. I mean, I bought houses that were sliding down hillsides, earthquake damage, no foundations. I did one on like 8th South and like 30th or 8th East and 30th South. They had no foundation under it. Great looking little house. I couldn't figure out how they set the brick on the dirt, but they did. And you know, something like that is not gonna, it's not gonna fly in a traditional sale. You know, it's not something you're gonna put on the MLS and watch it fly out the door, you know. But it was a good deal for me. We slapped a foundation under it. And when we did it, we lifted the house a little bit and put 2 bedrooms and a bath and a family room and made a nice profit on it. And so if you know a flipper, you can do some good things. So here's one that I think we just closed on this one like a couple days ago. So this one's out in Rose Park. Can you believe how Rose Park's like the new Harvard Yale. You know, it's nuts. But we bought this house for about $250. I think it was like $245, $247. And we just sold it for $475. And so after repairs and holding costs and whatever else, we had a net profit of $158,000.
We ended up putting a mother-in-law in the basement, which attracted a ton of buyers.
Yeah. So if you got houses that have mother-in-laws, that's you know, probably one of the top draws right now. Because houses are so expensive, what are families doing? They're moving in together, you know, and they're consolidating, or they want somebody to help cover the, you know, the payment. So in my house, it's me, the wife, and a dog, and it's more space than I really need because I'm working all the time anyway. And so my mother-in-law, my basement apartment, pays the entire mortgage. So I live there free. I kind of like that. You know, it's just I wouldn't know what to do. You know, people are talking about, I've got a mortgage. I've got $1,700, you know, $2,000, $1,800. I wouldn't know what to do with a $1,000 mortgage. But my tenant has covered it forever, and so it's awesome. But this one worked out really well, and so what I want to cover here with flipping is just some of the basics, like the wholesaling. You know enough of the basics to know what it is, how to do it basically. You're going to get a copy of our paperwork and that, and then you can always call us and we'll be happy to answer any questions. Same thing is true with flippings. You know, there's a couple of key ratios. So when you're trying to help find deals for buyers, or you're trying to do a flip for yourself, is $158,000 a good deal? I mean, is that a good profit? You know, you bought it for $250 and put it into it, you know? It's not bad, right? I mean, it's not, you know, it's not something we would cry over. Here's something that's interesting too. Do you think you could do that without any money? Yes. You're back there nodding, going, yes, you could actually do that without any money. Or at least you could partner in it without any money. So I've done a few of these where, you know, we have like a pool of, you know, several $1 million and we get tapped out, and I'll be like, okay, it's hard money, or I'll bring in a partner. And so I'll talk to somebody and say, hey, how'd you like to partner on this deal with me? You come up with the money, I've got the deal, here's the numbers. I'll give you 40% plus I collect the commission when we sell. It's not bad, is it? You know, I did one up in up above the Capitol there, and I think we made like $300,000 on it. 60-40 split, I thought was pretty good. You know, plus the commission, and he was happy. He was ecstatic because, you know, it's way better than the bank at 2%. You know, so that you can actually do that. You can actually flip a house without any money. It's just about getting connected with the right people. When you guys are flipping that 7-plex, Dallas, who's funding it?
Actually, we have a loan out with the Cent. So we may keep it and burr it, but we don't have hard money on that right now.
Okay, that's good. So we actually, on probably 50% of our flips, seller finance those. We'll talk about that. And we just ask. You know, we were paying cash forever, and then we just started asking. About 2 years ago, we thought, well, you know, this is what we can pay. Or if you want a little bit more, you know, and you want to carry the note for 6 months, and half the people say, yeah, they want to carry it for 6 months because they make a little bit extra money. In fact, I had one. So hard money is, anybody know what hard money rates are currently? 13%, yeah, that's right. 13, 12 and 2, 10 and 4, but it's all about 12, 13%. So, yeah.
What points are going on?
So it depends. It's like 2 to 3 points. I do some lending as well, but usually just on seconds or thirds or fix-up money. Everything is negotiable because it's real estate, right? And it's all awesome. Who were you in the no, was your daughter was in the negotiations class, right?
No, that was
Or
Kim.
the other Kim. Okay, you guys, you came in at the same time, but you came in at the same time. But it's all negotiable. Everything in real estate is negotiable. I mean, what's the worst thing they're going to say? No. Yeah, I mean, really, if it gets really bad, maybe hell no, right? But we're negotiating now, right? We're talking, you know, so we get to move back and forth. So it works out pretty good. So this is the one. It looks like. So I guess it closed last week, so about 7 days ago, 8 days ago, on the 10th. But you can see it right there, $475,000, you know, on 5th North and 8th West. Who would have known? I can remember when you could buy those houses in the 30s, you know. It was just...
Funny, that's like right adjacent to this house is this property that some guys are, I think, renting, or they turned it into like a community garden, but that went downhill, and it's got like just tents in the yard and stuff. People were still willing to pay that price for it.
A homeless camp next door. Yeah, so it's still willing to do it. So it's good. So what is flipping a house really? Okay, so flipping a house is, you know, in its most basic terms, it is forcing appreciation on a property by making capital improvements that people are willing to pay top dollar for. Okay, so what you're doing is taking old and ugly and turning it into something that people will pay top dollar for. So let me show you an example here. It's not by luck. You know, you have to make sure you observe your ratios. That's probably the main thing. It's done with a good plan. And if you do it smart, you can either do it smart or hard. And I prefer to work smarter than work harder. So what we do is, this house is one that's before appreciation. It's on 2540 East, I think, about 27th South. up above on Heritage Way up in the Canyon Rim area. And as you can see, it was kind of ugly. You know, nothing fancy. Pay special attention over there to the front window because you'll see what it looks like, okay? And the kitchen was just, you know, like an old kitchen. It was dated, you know, tile and wood and et cetera. And I'm trying to move around so I'm not in everybody's way here so that you guys can all see that. I'll just kind of stand over here. But, you know, had these narrow, ugly hallway, dingy, you know, long, narrow living room, et cetera. Now, forcing appreciation, this is what we did to it. So we put the floor-to-ceiling glass in there on the front room because it was a little bit narrower than most front rooms are. And this is what it looked like from the inside. So let's kill the, you want to camp out on the lights there maybe if we got, yeah, so you can kind of see, we go back here. So that's what it looked right there before. Okay, so it was kind of ugly before. And then, you know, narrow hallways, just, you know, arched, dated everything, narrow living room. So we put the floor-to-ceiling glass in there, which gives it the appearance of a larger size. And this is what it looks like from the inside. So I love these pictures because on the MLS, they're awesome. You know, people see that and they're like, okay. Put steel beams in because we went for a warm contemporary look. Because you can get probably 30 to 40% more on a contemporary home than you can a conventional or standard home. And so we went and did that. We staged it, looked pretty good staged. Opened that back wall up. Everywhere you see steel is where we took walls out and created space and put the stairs down below it there. We forced appreciation by taking an old crappy bathroom and turning it into something that was pretty nice. And I got a little bit risque there and put the red vanity in, but it didn't seem to matter because it sold like hotcakes. So it's amazing what you can do.
Were those steel beams exposed?
They were exposed. Yeah, and it can, yeah, not even painted. A clear coat, a lot of times will keep the rust.
Okay.
So use just like a clear coat, like a shellac or something like that on them. But people like those clear steel beams, you know, they can see them. I just did a $3 million job up in Park City. We had 7 of them. And so it's just, it's kind of fun. So here's the ratios. This is what you probably need to have as an agent. I'm going to give you a few ratios. Some are written, some aren't. We can go ahead and turn the light back on if you like there. So 80% of the after repaired value minus repaired costs. Okay, that is what you're looking for. So we start with the end in mind. All right. So if the after repair value is $450,000, okay, we're going to take 80% of that, which is $360,000. Okay. And then we're going to subtract the repair costs. Okay. Now in this case, the repair costs were $60,000. So $300,000 would be the max purchase price. Okay. That'd be the max price that you wanted to pay for that property. And you make sure that we're still focused there. But so $300,000 is your max purchase price. You don't want to pay any more than that. If you pay any more than that, you run a chance of losing money. I've used this ratio for 16 years here in Utah, 17 years, and made money every single time with it. I've never lost money with it. Yes?
Do you use the same ratio for seller buy?
Yeah, I use the same for everything. Yeah. I mean, you could tweak your numbers. So this is a general ratio that I go in and I can look and it's really quick. I can say, okay, I need 60,000, 40,000, or 100,000 repairs. And just bang, 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 bang. Because you're going to save some money with seller financing, but there's always things that come up that you don't expect. And so when somebody is out doing a flip, I always tell them that plan on 10%. Plan an overrun of 10%. That's pretty, you know, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was the largest builder in Eastern Oregon. I stopped counting years ago at 500 flips, so maybe closer to 1,000 remodels. I ran over on most of them. I very rarely, like as in almost never, come in on budget when it comes to repairs. But at the same time, I've always used this ratio and I've always made money. Yes?
Is that 60,000 including your holding costs?
That was just the repairs. Yeah, so usually I just throw the repairs. I don't usually throw the holding costs in. but usually it's just, if I do it, you know, obviously if I held the property for years, it took too long to do it, but I'm trying to get in and out of these fast. You know, 120 days is the ideal for me, so I want in and out quick.
We have a question.
We had a question? So-
Actually, you just answered it. I was going to say, how long are you taking to flip?
Yeah, so we usually plan on 6 months, but the ideal is 120. So we're on 120 days. You want to get in and out fast because every day you're there, although there's two rules of thought on this. You know, rising tide lifts all boats, right? So in 2007, it's kind of like right now, screw up and move up. So the longer it took you to do your flip, the more money you made, because you know the house prices were just going up every month, right? But all other things being equal, in a real world, you want to get in and out fast, just because you know what your market is, your holding costs are lower, you know, et cetera. It makes a lot more sense. So if you look at this one, so somebody can run the numbers on that, and I'm pretty sure I was inside on that one. So you figure we'll start backwards. So if you got who's got a calculator? Who's going to get volunteered with the calculator? Okay. So take 475,000. And then times 0.80.
380.
Okay. Subtract, was that like 65,000 on that one? 65,000.
315.
Okay. So the most I would have paid was 315, and what did I get it for? 250. Yeah. So I could have paid 315 for it and still made decent money on it, but I made 158, and I kind of like that one.
Was it 475 what you were asking for though? I mean, in this market we're seeing people offer more. Did you list it for less than that?
No, it's the 439.
439.
439.
Yeah. Yeah, it was listed at 439, and
Is that what you based your numbers off originally then?
yeah. Well, we figured it'd go high, but yeah. It's like probably the last 5 houses I've sold have gone between 30 and 50,000 over appraised value. So but it's a good number to run off of. Now I have done a couple where I've been really close, and so if you're close, then you start crunching everything. Okay, insurance costs, tax costs, holding costs, you know, your repairs, instead of just throwing a chunk at it and saying 60,000, you know, or 80,000 or whatever, because I've done 10 and it's just like, you know, the other 9. I'm saying I'm running it with the calculator and square footage and everything else to make sure. So if you're tight and you're looking for a deal, you can do that. So here's another number to remember. There should always be a minimum of $50,000 spread between purchase price and sales price. So the 80% ARV minus repair costs, plus you want a minimum spread. Like I don't look at anything unless there's a $50,000 spread in it between purchase and sales price. And then another way to look at it for agents that I found it to be fairly effective, where you don't have to understand so much about the repair costs, which is usually the challenge for most people if they're not in the business, is price per square foot. And so I took 10 of my friends that have all been flipping houses for years, and we all said, okay, where does it start to look good, like a deal start to look good? Well, it was a $40 spread in price per foot between the purchase price and the sales price. So if somebody calls and says, hey, I've got this deal, it's a great deal, it's going to be a great investment, I look and go, okay, what's the ARV price per square foot? Okay, here, what's the purchase price per square foot? Oh, good, it's 40 or better, you know. And then I will look, and sometimes you want it 65 or 70, but for a very light remodel, 40. And so if you can have those 3 things, $50,000 spread, at least a $40 per square foot difference between the purchase price and the after remodel or after repaired value, you'll be good. And then the ARV times 80% minus repair costs, because you really want to, especially if you haven't done a lot of flips, you want to stay inside those numbers. Yes.
When you say the mother-in-law is really profitable, do you usually have to have an outside entrance?
So yes, an outside entrance. A mother-in-law is extremely valuable, whether it's legal or not. Okay. Number one, your sellability just increased by probably 300%. and your market increased, the number of people that are interested in purchasing your property. Okay, so if you can create a mother, and a lot of times, a lot of these houses, you know, you can just, I mean, you're walling off. If you got a bi-level split, you can actually do an entry and create a, you know, mother-in-law, you know, at the bottom of it. And we've done, like down here where you can see the you know, the window well right there. You can come in a lot of times right there in the same spot and put a side entrance in.
I was gonna ask you, do you think you have to have an entrance to call it a mother-in-law?
Well, I think, no, you can call it a mother-in-law without the entrance, because some people will do it, but if you really want to do it and have it all done, you know, it's, I mean, it's really, so to put a side entrance in there, my cost to put a side entrance in there is going to be about $3,000. So it's not bad. It's a couple of guys digging, and usually I'm talking Boy Scouts, you know, or somebody that's, you know, because you don't have to be real smart on the end of a shovel, right? And then we just form it up and pour it. You've already got the header most of the time, like the windows are usually, you know, 36 inches wide, so they've already got the header on the top of the concrete. So all you're having to do is just cut straight down, you know, and go in with a door. And so I just did one for one of my agents. I sent my guys over. It was like $3 grand. So wasn't.
Legal versus illegal.
What was that?
Legal mother-in-law versus.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, yeah.
So I
So
was wondering about like what would make it illegal, probably the zoning.
yeah, zoning would make it illegal. So as far as, you know, it's,
Is there a way to get around that with trusts
well,
or LLC?
I mean, there's things, you know, I mean, so, all right, this is a whole other class.
Statute would dictate whether it's.
Yeah, it's a statute. Now, I am not a real rule follower. I'm just going to be honest. You know, I'm like, I took a DISC test, and when it came to like obedience, I was a 5 on a 1 to 100. My wife was a 3. And so when I'm looking at stuff, I'm like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, I mean, I always ask, I'm like, what's the worst thing that could happen? Okay, the worst thing that could happen, am I okay with it? Yeah, I'm okay with it. You know, I mean, is it a big deal? No. So what's the worst thing that could happen? So I had a house, and I had a mother-in-law in it, and I'm renting the mother-in-law out, and I've got the county show up. And they're like, hey, we've got here, you have an illegal duplex. Okay, what do you think I said?
My relative.
I don't ever lie. But, you know, you could say that, because we're all kind of related. Like, I think Martin Luther King's like my 8th cousin or something, so we're probably all tied in there somewhere. But, so I probably, but I don't ever lie. I just said, do you have a warrant? You know, and, well, no. And they came back a couple of times, and you can have 3 unrelated parties in that area. So I was like, okay, it's me, the dog, and them. So I just took the locks off the doors between my unit and their unit and said, hey, we're going to do this for a day. They were fine. They don't want to move. My tenants didn't want to move. I said, you know, you get 5 minutes to come in and look and out. And then it happened again, and I was like, you got a warrant? No. And I said, well, you're never getting in here, because I wasn't feeling as nice. And so I don't know how I did it, but we hacked the county's code enforcement, the communications between the code enforcers and everybody else. We got into it, and it was an encryption problem on their end. And I got in there, and there was a communication. They were like, we've been in this guy's house before. He always asks for you know, if we've got a warrant. We are never going to get into this. I recommend that we just close this and never go back. So that's what I did. But the worst thing that happens is I have one of my agents who rented a house out for a number of years, made $2,000 a month on it by renting the top and, you know, an apartment out. Got shut down by the county, no problem. You know, he turned around and sold the house at a huge profit. If you're okay with whatever the penalty is, that's up to you. You know, I'm not telling you to break the statute, but it's not like it's a crime. It's not criminal. It's just a code enforcement deal. So, yes.
I know you probably don't want to diverge much, but HB 82 going through the legislation right now, if you didn't get your NAR email, they're trying to make ADUs standard statewide.
Yeah.
I encourage you to look at that, and if you like it, support it.
Yes, you know, an accessory dwelling unit. I mean, because it's a good thing, right? And And I think Salt Lake's is what, 400 and something square feet? And I didn't look at you can't be any larger than, it was like 424 or something like that. But you know, that's a decent sized accessory dwelling unit. And when you've got the prices going up like crazy, it makes it hard to find houses for a lot of people, doesn't it? I mean, what do you do with, you know, guys that got $300,000? I got $300,000, I want to buy a house. And they're all excited. And you're like, well, Ogden, Tooele, maybe. You know, and because they're thinking Sandy, Draper, you know, Salt Lake, you know, sure, like that. But you know, with the accessory dwelling unit, you could actually do a lot of different things, and it makes it more affordable for the buyer, because if you had an ADU on it, you could count the rents that you would get from the ADU towards their income, and so their ability to purchase instead of a $300,000 property might be $400,000 or $450,000 or higher. So I have seen that. We've done that, but it really works out really, really nice. What time is it? Okay. All right. Do you have any questions so far? Is anybody finding this interesting? You know?
Yes.
It's I have built my own financial future, I guess, and my brokerage and everything else based upon higher level real estate. For some of you that are older and know who Vince Lombardi, he said run where they ain't, you know, and I thought, you know, if everybody's running, all the sheep are running right here. I actually was a sheep herder once in eastern Washington. But, you know, sheep run together. It's like, you know, just everybody crowds in there and they shoot up, you know, right down the same chute, right? And I had 3,000 sheep in a corral once, and one found a hole, and he thought he was going to be different. And so he went through the hole in the fence, and I watched 3,000 sheep pile through as fast as they could so they could all be together, right? But I learned that you know, the targets are also easier when you got a big group of sheep together. So, but the thing is that if you can do things that everybody else isn't, then you get what everybody else doesn't have. Does anybody know what the average transactions or average closings are per agent? Like if I take 100 agents from anywhere, you know what the average is?
Or 1.7 or something like that.
So if I take so when I did this, we did this a year ago. Doesn't matter. We've done it in like 5 of our states. Remax, Keller, Coldwell, Sotheby's, Equity, we're good. It's 4.2 to 4.8 transactions.
Per year?
Per year. Because you got guys like, you know, me that are on the higher end, and you got people who aren't doing anything, right? And so nobody wants to be average. Nobody starts out in this business going, I'm going to be happy with just doing 2 or 1.7 or 4 or whatever a year. Now, if you did 4 of those flips a year, that put you like 600 and change. That might not be so bad. But, you know, or a flip and a bunch of transactions, or, you know, something else, or a wholesale or 2, it can be really good. Or even if you did just what that agent did, was run around looking for seller finance deals, knowing that he can call somebody that'll come in and he's got a cash buyer in hand. Because I'm here to tell you, if you don't have a client, I'm your client, you can say, I have a buyer looking in this area, because I'm looking everywhere. You know, I'd be happy to do that. But it just works. It's just, he came, he listened to what we had to say about turning straw into gold, because he had nothing. He had no buyer, very little experience, newer agent, you know, but he said, oh, seller finance. He said, or sorry, for sale by owner. These guys will buy those properties, you know. It's not listed. Let me go in and just talk to these people. Oh, this guy's willing to sell. Well, let me see if I can get it listed. Well, no, everybody's trying to list it, right? Not interested. Just want somebody who's going to pay cash. And the guy, I mean, it was, you know, the inside, it was kind of messed up. We wholesaled it to a flipper who thinks he's going to get like $970 out of it, but he's going to put a couple $100,000 into it. So it should be, you know, a good deal for him as well. But it worked out, and he got 15 grand in a few days, you know, which is, you know, good money. Okay, so seller finance. You want to say seller finance or break? Stefan, can you come up and take like 5 minutes and just talk about what you do? And did you bring your book with you? I kind of like the book. I like having a good home inspector because a lot of times that saves you a lot of money. Yeah, so one of the things that I like is, you know, remember when we used to send calendars? You used to see calendars on the fridge all the time? Because people used to stick them there, right? And you always counted on getting one from an agent because there was their picture. Like my aunt, Nancy Toffer, you know, she could count on having her picture on my fridge all year long. And that was before I got into the business. But anytime we could get something stuck into their house, you know, into somebody's house, and something they're going to look at again and again, it's a good thing. And I saw this study. I do a lot of marketing. In fact, I teach classes on marketing. I've taught some of those, you know, all over the country. In fact, some of you might have went to the one I taught here a while back. I had 300 people that attended, and it was all agent marketing sucks and what you can do about it. But which maybe we'll delve into at the end of this. But the fact of the matter is, if you can get something into somebody's house, it's great. People don't throw away books. You know, even books, you know, old crappy books, they just, you know, they don't do it. And if it's hardbound and hardbacks, they just don't throw it away. It's a perception of value. And so when they're looking at it and say, oh, we've got this home inspection, it's kind of nice because a PDF, we all look at, it's quick, okay, here's the salient points, good, you know, we want the seller to fix this and we're off to the races, right? But with a book, it's like, okay, you know, maybe I should address this, or it looks like, you know, the roof has, you know, 7 years life in it, and you know, it's 5 years, so maybe I ought to, you know, look at that. It's something that I can refer to. And so that's why I told Stefan, I said, let's put our picture, let's put the agent's picture on the front of it. So whatever agent, you know, that calls you to do the home inspection, you know, put their contact information, their picture, everything else, right on the opening page of it. So when people open the book up, they can see that person's information, because that's what I want them to see. I want them to see Randall, William, you know, the Wall team, whatever that we've got going on there, because they're going to do business with us. Does anybody need a bathroom break, or should I continue on to this one? We'll take a break in 20 minutes, or nobody will say. All right, we'll keep going. Okay, we'll go through seller financing. All right, who's done a seller financing transaction? Okay, maybe 6 or 7. I've done several hundred of them. What is the typical thing that happens with an agent? Let me give you a scenario. You sell these people a house. It's 4 months ago. It's today's market, and so they paid at appraised or above appraised value. They used all their money to get into it, you know, and barely, you know, put anything down, the bare minimum. But now they're getting divorced. Okay? And they're upside down on it. They'd have to bring $20,000 maybe to the table to pay realtor fees, et cetera, to get it closed. But they don't have $20,000. What do you tell them? Yeah, I'll buy it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's smart. What do you tell them? Most agents, I've followed up so many agents on this, they usually tell them 2 things. And here's what the uneducated agent says, okay? If you're not educated, you say, the only thing you can do is a short sale. Okay, we'll have to short sale this house. Or the second thing is, I can't help you out. And they walk away from it, you know. If you can't borrow money from family, friends, you know, bank cards or whatever to pay, you know, commissions and closing costs, I can't help you out. And they walk away. All right, so seller financing is really interesting. And William, give me for some reason this isn't loving me here. I don't know if maybe, no, I don't know what I did here. Oh, there is a red dot. Okay, good. Can you?
You don't do AV training, right? Audio, video?
No, I don't. I do not. You know, because you can hire it out. You know, I learned a long time ago that you should hire everything out that somebody can do cheaper than you can. So if you can get your oil changed for 15, 20 bucks an hour, hire it out. I've got one guy from Harvard, one guy from Princeton. They're cheap. You know, they would love to make what I make. And at 80 and 100,000 a year, or 110,000 a year, they're cheap. Get them to do their stuff. So AV training, I've got William, who, you know, or somebody else, and it's my son, so it doesn't get any cheaper than that, right? Yeah, because I like doing it that way. When you really want to create wealth, seller financing, okay? I cannot hit this one hard enough. And the reason is, I'm going to assume you're all successful, you're all making 6 figures a year. But in today's market, how many houses can you purchase with 6 figures a year? And how long is it going to take for you to save money? Because it's what, 20, 25% down to have a second home. You know, if you've got a home that you're not living in, it's investment property, it's 20% down for 3.2% interest and 25 for 2.57 or whatnot. So I don't know about you, but you know, if that's 400 grand, it's 100,000 a pop. And if you're making 100, 150 a year, you're not going to be able to do a lot there. You know, you buy one every now and then. Well, seller financing, I love it. I mean, other people's trials are your blessings because you're going to bless them, solve their problem, because they don't want to do a short sale. They don't want to go bankrupt. They don't want to have their credit thrashed. You know, you're going to be able to handle this problem. Each one has a commission, okay? And that's why you want to educate yourself. That's why we did this today. So I had a lot of people asking me about doing the 5 fingers of real estate. And I'm actually doing it at the Investor Association later this month when we've got our seminar. I'm going to be covering this. But every one of those seller financing deals has a commission attached to it. I have never got less than $10,000 ever on any seller financing transaction that I've ever done. Upside down, no equity, low equity, doesn't matter. I can find somebody that will pay me a $10,000 minimum, and often a lot more than that. That's usually kind of like the baseline. But $10,000 commission to solve somebody's problem. Seller financing is great for a lot of reasons. And we'll talk about a few of them. One reason is, do you know that the foreclosure rate on a seller finance transaction is about a quarter what the national average is? Why do you think that is? Relationships. You know, people have skin in the game. Relationships. If you sell me a house, I know you. Do I know Chase or J.P. Morgan or anybody else? I don't know them and I don't care about them. I probably don't even like them, you know, because they're dirt bags, right? Like GameStop, everybody was rooting for all those Reddit guys that took it hard to the the big boys on Wall Street. I mean, that's that's all of us, right? There's no such thing as an underwater house when it comes to this. It's just agents who don't know, okay? Seller financing is amazing, and you would be amazed at what you see. So I was in a small town, Burns, Oregon. Anybody ever been to Burns, Oregon? Awesome. Okay. So Burns, Oregon. My daughter lives there. I helped my friend do this deal and this house, and houses are really cheap there because like it's 3,000 people, 130 miles from anywhere. More cows than people. But this trucker had gone through a divorce. And my friend was selling him his house for like 120, 130,000. Just a little cracker box, probably 900 feet or something. But the guy had 100,000 down and still couldn't get financing. So he financed it for 100,000 down for a year. But it's just, it's real estate. Everything's negotiable, right? Trucker's happy, got into the house. He wanted the house. My friend's happy, got $100,000 plus monthly payments for, the other $20,000 or $30,000. A little bit of interest. It was a good deal all the way around. So that's why I say there's no bad deals. I mean, maybe there is somewhere. I'll probably run into one someday because as soon as I take an absolute position, it seems like God sends something my way to keep me humble. But in reality, I haven't come across very many transactions that were not doable this way. Mostly just agents that weren't educated. I'll give you a couple personal examples. So. And I'm not saying this can we hit that one there? Maybe, there you go. I need all the help I can get. I've been married 4 times. So there's a saying that's really wise that says, never ask anybody for their opinion if you wouldn't change places with them, or never ask for advice from somebody that you wouldn't change places with, okay? Now, my last 5 years have been amazing. And I don't think I'll ever get married again, and thank you, God. It's a good thing. But I went to Germany maybe 7 years ago to buy a castle. Prosen Castle, about half an hour from Dresden. It's on 15 acres right on the Elbe River, about 60,000, 65,000 feet. Also had a huge stables and everything else that went with it. I came home to, I want a divorce and I want the money. Go figure. So I thought about it and I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening again. And I thought, well, the money's never made me happy. Okay? I've never been happy with money. I said, take it. You can have it all. You can have the retirement accounts. You can have everything in the bank. You can take it all. Take it all. I need $8,000 because I live on like $4,000 a month. I still do, about $4,000 a month, unless I'm traveling or doing something really fun, I guess. But so anyway, I had my $8,000. I turned that $8,000 into $1.4 million in 4.5 years on seller financing. It has been a huge deal for me. I had a COVID disaster up in Park City on a new build here at the end of last year that I lost $840,000 on, and still ended up with that much or more in the bank over a short period of time. And it's mostly because of seller financing. So this one here's a good example. I bought this duplex for $3,000 down. It was $130,000 on the note. The guy screwed around so long that it was going to sale in a couple of days. And so, and you can remember 4 or 5 years ago, houses weren't quite what they are today. A lot of them were hard to get rid of. And I put some repairs into it, but not a ton. I created an extra bedroom up here. And recognize that one, Eric? But Eric did the roof up there. That's why the roof looks so good. He used to be, before he was a millionaire real estate tycoon, he would do some roofs on the side for him. But I sold that one for like $422. It's a great deal. Now, what kind of return is that? If you can turn something in 4 or 5 years for $3,000 investment, $422,000, the spread alone is $300,000. It's leverage, right? No money down on this one. Exactly what we talked about. Couple had been in there. The guy started remodeling this one, and so he'd stripped the sheetrock off of a couple of rooms, etc. This was like 4.5, almost 5 years ago, because I sold it at the end of last year. But I put no money down on this one. I put about maybe $8,000 into it, and I cleared $130,000 on it. I just took a couple of those. Is that a good return? I mean, it's amazing what you can do. I bought an office building that needed $50,000. The guy wanted $50,000 to carry the note. I borrowed the $50,000, or all half of it, I think. I got a friend say, hey, give me $50,000, I'll give you X. And I ended up this office building, and it was worth, at the time, he says, I'll sell it to you for $250,000 and $50,000 to carry the note for 5 years. Well, 4.5 years later, we were refinancing it with the bank, and so the bank sent over an appraiser. Guess what it was worth? $840,000. Leverage. So my $25,000, my friends borrowed $25,000. Huge, huge deal going on there. It's important. You want to become, go ahead, we can turn the lights back on there. Thank you. You want to become a solutions wizard, okay? That's the key to success here, all right? It's not to just go and do everything that everybody else has done and trod the well-worn path of 4.2 to 4.8 transactions a year. It's becoming a solutions wizard, all right? Because there's so much stuff out there that lazy people just won't think about. It's why it's easier just to follow somebody, It's easier to say, oh, well, so-and-so said this, and we trot along that way. Or CNN says that, and we trot along this way. I used to work for the government. I had a NATO top secret clearance. I've done, some fairly interesting things. And one thing I know about CNN is Al Jazeera is way more accurate than CNN and CNBC and everybody else. But because, do you remember they used to say the most trusted and, the most trusted news network? That was kind of like their logo. Well, people believe that crap. They don't think anything. Oh, they said it on CNN, or so-and-so said it here, Rush Limbaugh said it there, or whatever they, whatever you believe, they trot down that path. There's a lot of solutions, okay? It works really good when there's no or very little or not enough equity. I bought a property up in Woods Cross that was less than a year old. It had been built by a lady and her husband. He had died in the house. She did not want anything to do with it, okay? I think I didn't put any money down on it. We just took it over, okay? I took it over, and 4 years later, it was actually $200,000 more than what we paid for it. But it was a perfect solution here, because she says, well, I've talked to the other agents and there's not enough equity. Yeah, well, you didn't talk to us, so we bought it. I've sold dozens of these to other people in seller financing and always collect at least $10,000 commission. Tax reasons, sometimes people sell to you because they don't want a whole big large chunk of money right now this year for whatever reason, and so they'll carry the note. You can get a lot of money. I used to call it spinning straw into gold, where if you're really a good negotiator as an agent, so right now, the interest rates are really low. In fact, they have been for 5 years. But seller finance properties, a lot of these people will have no problem paying 5% interest, or 6%, or 5 years ago, 8%. So if I had interest at 4%, I would bump the interest rate up. I would say, look, you have no equity in your house. You just want to get out of it, right? Yeah, we talked to these people and these agents, and some are saying walk away, some are saying it's short sale, some are saying this, some are saying that. I said, well, how about if I sell this house, and I'm going to want to get paid for it. I'm going to want 10 grand from the buyer, but how about if I get you a monthly paycheck? Well, that sounds pretty good. I said, this is how we're going to do it. So it's at 3.5%. I boosted the interest rate to 5%. Found a buyer to come in with $60,000 cash, which was a nice little chunk, and paid my commission, plus made sure they had skin in the game. And then what do you think the difference is on a $300,000 house when you're at like an extra 1.5% interest? I don't know what it is, but it's like $200 a month, I think. It's kind of a good deal. Now, if you're an agent, does that sound like something that would be more appealing to your clients versus walking away or having their credit destroyed? Absolutely. So there's a lot of tools. Higher price for the seller, you always get more for financing. It's like cars. People don't say, how much was it? They say, how much is the payment, right? That's what people look at. House is the same thing. It's not like they really look at, if we're honest, they don't care about the price of the house. They care about what the monthly payment is. What's the mortgage going to be on it? Okay, I can afford this to this, all right? And then we tailor the price of the house based on what their monthly payments are. Because most people are going to make payments for life. Very few people have a house paid off. So most people are they're going to be there 5 or 6 years, make payments, maybe upsize or downsize, somewhere along the way, but they're still going to be making payments. So you get a higher price and you get more out of your property if you're doing seller finance, and a whole lot more buyers. I had so I've got like 3 crews on my construction company, and I had one of my subcontractors was a landscaper, and I lived in Spain. William's mom is from Spain. I speak Spanish every day, and hey, Randall, we've been doing your houses for a long time. I'd really like to get into a house. Great, Juan. How much do you have down? He says, well, I don't want to use all my money. And I'm thinking, I'm like, look at this guy. He's the guy that's mowing my lawn, right? And he says, I have about $85,000, but I think I'd like to put maybe 60 down if I can. More if I have to, but 60,000. I said, I can help you out. And so we have helped a lot of people that didn't think they could ever buy a house, because anybody can buy a house in America. You don't have to be a U.S. citizen. You don't have to be here with documents or not. It doesn't matter. You can own a house and got something that's going up in value instead of paying rent. Yes?
Would most of these people have bad credit?
No. Not all of them. What you run into a lot of times, so what I've run into a lot of times is undocumented, people, okay? 20, 30, probably 30%, it might be undocumented people. Guys that have been divorced. So it's guys like me. So, you know, I'm divorced, and I've got $8,000 in the bank. Does that look like, you know, am I going to qualify for anything? 'Cause you got to have reserves, right? You know, how many reserve? What's the reserve requirement now for a loan? Do we got any loan guys in here? It's usually a few months, right? You know, like, yes. What did I hear? 6 months? You know, reserves, not uncommon. So that's what you get. So is anybody gonna loan me on a property? Heck no. But do I make a lot of money? Yeah. You know, so that would be it's guys like that, or guys like the truck driver. He got divorced, went through an ugly divorce, had $100,000 in cash, but his credit was shot because his ex-wife went out and charged a bunch of stuff and it was late and didn't pay. And, you know, I mean, we all know the stories. We've all heard them, you know, just different, same story, different faces, right? And so it's not always a credit issue. In fact, that's a really great question. How many times do you think that I have been asked for my credit report on all of the seller financing deals that I've done?
0. Close to 0.
Never. I have never. I actually volunteered once. You know, one time I volunteered, and I was like, "Do you want to see my credit report?" And they were like, "Oh, okay." It was like at 8:04 or something at the time, you know, but they didn't even ask for it, you know. Most of the time, if people like you and trust you, and it's usually on a face-to-face basis, they'll do business with you. You know, I'm going to do business with him because he's got a nice face.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to it.
You know, I mean, that's it. You know, it's just, that's what it really is. Yes.
And do you usually have something where the seller is guaranteed they don't pay off the house, the buyer doesn't pay off the house within a certain amount of time, or?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about this. Let me go into this. I'll talk a little bit about that. That's all right. It's good. 50% of my flips, as I mentioned, are seller finance, okay? You want to leverage because leverage creates wealth, all right? Leverage everything, all right? And we're going to talk about how we're going to leverage protections as well. Leverage your time. Leverage your money. A little bit of money goes a long ways in a seller finance deal. Leverage your broker. So this is my shameless plug for those of you that aren't with Equity. I'm always looking for agents. To my knowledge, I'm pretty much the only real investor broker out there. You know, guys will say, "Oh, I've had a rental or maybe flipped a house," but I've done 500 to 1,000 flips. I've bought and sold notes, paper, wholesaled, seller financing, you know, et cetera. So I'm always looking for agents who want to take real estate to the next level, meaning do a lot of transactions and hit a few of the bonus home runs like the $110,000 wholesale or the $158,000 flip or something like that. But you want to leverage somebody's knowledge. So a lot of my agents will come to me because they're saying, "Well, I'm an agent now, but I want to invest at some point because I want to retire." My aunt, Nancy Toffer, in the business for 35 years, maybe longer, made a ton of money, bought a house on the east side and all that kind of stuff, big house. Biggest mistake she ever made, she told me, she says, "Randall, I never bought for myself. I never invested for myself. I was always helping somebody else." And she said, "I never could take a real vacation. I was lucky to get a week off." You know, if I don't get like a month or two a year, I'm feeling really sad. But she said, "I just couldn't do it." And she said, "I got into real estate initially so that I could take a vacation." Because my uncle was a sheet metal worker and at the time wasn't, you know, making tons of money. And so it's a big thing. And so I get people who come and say, "All right, when I run into that seller finance deal, how do I structure it?" They'll come to me. So you leverage everything, knowledge, broker, money, time, everything you have, you should be leveraging, you know. I leverage God because I make God my business partner. You know, I mean, it's just everything, you know. I'm going to say, you know, I take I'm a Christian, I make no bones about it. And I just, you know, I'm going to say, look, you know, in the scriptures it says, "Pray over your flocks and your fields." Well, my houses are my flocks and my fields in today's world, right? You know, help me to find this, help me to do the stuff, you know, that I need to do to make a good living for my family. And we've got a charity in Nepal, and so it's been a great thing. But leverage everything. Seller financing is the best leverage I know. Archimedes said, "Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world." Okay, $8,000 to $1.4 million over 4.5 years. That's leverage. Okay. So the questions that we have when we're doing this, let me see. Okay. So at the end of this, this is how we protect ourselves and protect our clients. So as an agent, if you're out with the buyer side, you want to make sure that the term is at least 10 years. Okay. When I'm buying property, I want to see at least a 10-year term as a buyer. All right. And that's because it'll usually handle a market correction. Because most market corrections are usually 7 or 8 years. You know, we have market cycle, they'll last in that time period. It gives me time for the house to go up enough that if there's a price difference, that I will be able to finance the property and get out of it. Or my buyers can finance the property and get out of it. If I'm on the seller side, I'm going to want to do whatever my sellers want, which is usually, you know, somewhat less than that. It might be 3 years. You know, I'm going to try and do it for 3 years. But a seller, in a seller finance situation, has the exact same protections that the bank does. Okay, they can foreclose. Now, there's some ways to get around that as well, and I can tell you how to protect them. Well, what if they don't make a payment and then I'm stuck? Okay, so I bought a duplex in Ogden for $20,000 down. Well, what if you don't make the payments? I said, how about if I make a payment a month in advance and I leave a month's worth of payments in escrow? It's the only property I've ever done it with escrow specialists. But escrow specialist is an escrow company. A lot of title companies, other places will do it for you. What if I leave an extra payment there? Okay, well that's great because that way I'll have 2 months. I'll know that you're behind for 2 months, right? And I don't mind, you know, I can do that. And so if they need to foreclose on me, the payment's made for 2 months, they can go in and foreclose. Judicial foreclosure takes a long time, but in Utah, 99% of everything is done with a trustee note. That's usually like a 4-month process. But what's happened in the time period mostly, I put $20,000 down on that property. Do I want to walk from that 20? Heck no. I don't want to. I get skin in the game. And do those people know me? Yes. You know, I call and talk to them occasionally. Yes. So you have the same protection that a bank has. You know, so that's the answer. And you can get the buyer to escrow money. When Juan put $60,000 down on that house, do we really care if he walks? I don't, because I'm sitting there thinking, 60 grand, I can pay for the 4 months, you know, 5 months it's going to take me to foreclose, right? The property's gone up in value, but I've already got $60,000 in equity on it. You know, I think I can handle that, you know, $1,600 a month for 4 months. You know, so it's a really good deal. Seller financing. Can you do seller financing without money? Everybody should be going yes, because you saw me do a couple there that had no money down. Now, during this period of me not having any money, being, you know, recently divorced with $8,000, I came into 2 different deals. And one of them was I needed, they had the death of a child in the house. They just didn't want, it was a rental. They didn't want to deal with it anymore. So they were selling it to me, but they needed $20,000 for the funeral. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, I can borrow hard money at 12% and whatever. And I thought, you know, I'm going to call Brandon, my buddy in the military. So Brandon's a colonel, he's a major in the Air Force. He's like Colonel Bellows, you know, he was on I Dream of Jeannie. He's a shrink for the Air Force, right? So he's always looking for a deal. And so I said, okay, here's the deal, Brandon. You're going to put $20,000 down on this property, and I'm going to give you 30%. Sound pretty good, right? So for $20,000, he's in. I gave him 30%. I'm out no money. They got their, you know, son buried, and we're renting the sucker out. And right now, market rents on it are $2,300 a month. So not a bad deal. But, you know, over a 4-year period, we watched that thing double in value. It went from $200,000 to $450,000. You know, it's a pretty good deal. And I've done that a few times with people. I've said, you know, I've got a bunch of money out. And to be honest, I think I just like Brandon, because I could always come up with 20,000. Even then, I could have called my dad and say, hey, Dad, loan me 20 grand. But it's just, you know, it's fun to do business with people you like. And it helps him out. And I'm a vet, you know, so I like other vets. And the one thing about vets, so vets are, here's a note, you should, if you don't write this down, you should put this in your mind and file it somewhere. But most guys retire from the military with nothing, okay? They don't own a house. They never buy a house. They've got nothing but their military retirement, and it's not enough to live on without working unless they leave the country and live somewhere like Bali or Indonesia or Nepal where you can live like a king on a couple grand a month. So they do have savings, or the military equivalent of the IRA or the 401k. And so you can actually do several things. You can talk them into buying a rental and managing it, or having your company manage it. We have a management here at Equity. We do property management as well. Or those guys will make great partners on different transactions. I've done it several times with military people. And I get to help them out. They get 30% ownership. And a little bit of something's better than a lot of nothing. And I'm not a greedy guy. Guys are like, oh, well, you should have done the 20,000, then you would, yeah, I would have made a lot more money. But in reality, the house that was worth 200 is now worth 450. It's cash flowing 1,300 a month. How much is enough? Do you remember what I said I lived on? $4,000 a month. So if I make 100,000 a month, what happens? It goes somewhere else. I'm still living on $4,000 a month. It's just what it is. My wife's cheaper than I am, so it's awesome. Although she has discovered Amazon during this COVID thing. That's been kind of funny, but I was looking at it the other day. It's like on my checking account, the household checking account, I usually keep it at 12 grand, and it runs pretty close. Like every month, I put about $4,000 in there, and it always stays at about $12,000. And that, I move it over from my business account, and so that's how I guesstimate, I guess, that I'm living on $4,000 a month. But I do travel a lot, and it's not $4,000 a month then. But it's just a powerful, powerful deal. Leverage, leverage, leverage. Seller finance. You don't have to have credit. You don't have to have money. Leverage. Yes.
Do you have a workaround for the due on sale?
Oh, great question. All right. So if I was doing just the seller financing, would have covered it. There's no due on sale jail. All right. People are worried about the loan being called due. It's not against the law. There's no due on sale jail. I've done hundreds of these and had 0 of them called due. I've actually done them with Utah Housing, which polices their loans. And there is a workaround. So you can do it in a trust. I typically like a trust because Garn-St. Germain Act of 1982 says that a person can put a property into trust for their personal benefit without prejudice, which means that the bank can't call the note due. So the property goes into trust, you're pretty much set. I did have them call on one property, actually the one I did with Brandon. They called on that property. Said, hey, it looks like title's changed. Yes, Garn-St. Germain Act of 1982. So that the owner could put the property into trust without prejudice. Would you like me to send you a copy of the statute? Yes, please. Great. I sent him a copy of the statute. I haven't heard from him, it's been years. So it's, so I had a friend that did 500 of these, said he had one called due from a private lender. But if one's called due, you can just finance. Just finance. Now I did have one of my agents that had one that I helped structure with Utah Housing, and they've had it for 7 years. And all of a sudden, it wasn't good enough. And Utah Housing was creating enough of a problem. She was worried about it. They didn't start to foreclose or anything else. But I said, well, just deed it back in the name of the guy that you got it from, because you're still friends, right? It's another Juan. There's a lot of Juans out there. But I said, just deed it back into Juan's name and then do a long-term lease option with the same terms. So that means that you can collect the rents, you can do everything else. I mean, like I said, this is basically an overview of giving you enough to know and who to call when you have a problem, and I'll give you a workaround for it. But yeah, it's not against the law. And very, very rarely happens when the loan's being paid. Sandwich lease options. Okay. How much time do I got, William? I don't want to run over.
25 minutes.
Okay. All right. And then I'll answer any questions in as much depth as you want as I get to the end of this. So sandwich lease option. So the best part about a sandwich is typically the meat, right? You know, it's the middle part. I'm a vegetarian, so maybe it's the fish, I guess pescatarian, but it's the middle part. And that's where you want to be at. So a lease option is just basically a rent to own agreement. Now, this can work out really nicely, because what you do on a lease option agreement, which was, you know, the number 4 finger for me, was, okay, can I lease it and then sublease it for some cash flow? So we're in Utah, and there's a lot of what in Utah specifically? Mormons, LDS people, right? Let me make it easy for you. And that means a lot of them go on what? Missions. Okay. Well, and for missionaries, you got to have mission presidents. And mission presidents leave for how long? 3 years. Okay. So this has actually worked out pretty good. So I used to live up in the Harvard-Yale area, but I helped LeBeau White, one of my agents, do this. So if you've got somebody in the wards going on a mission, well, we want somebody to take care of our house, and you know, it'd be nice to make a little bit of money, but mostly we just want it to be, you know, in good order and that. So great. How about you lease the house out to us for $1,000 a month? Okay. And well, what about repairs? Well, how about, you know, we handle all the small stuff. So anything that's $100 or less, we'll handle it. And you guys handle anything that's, you know, $100 or more. Okay. Awesome. So we get in there, and this is how the mechanics and how we got paid on it. As we went through, we did a lease agreement. We brought somebody in who was going to leave right before they got back, you know, the month before they got off their mission. So we did the term right. We leased it for $2,400 a month. So a nice gig, $1,400 a month in cash flow, right? And said that, all right, you're responsible for the first 100, and we'll take care of anything over 100. So we didn't have to worry about any repairs, which wouldn't have been a big deal in any event. But what's really nice about this is you got the monthly cash flow. You get very little out of pocket, if anything. You know? And then don't forget the bonus option. So with mission presidents that want to come back and live in their house, it doesn't work so much. But the option to purchase is really nice. So most of these, we have an option. So we do a lease option. So the lease, we have the right to sublease. We also have the right to purchase the property. So an option is a right to purchase something on or before a specific date. Okay? The right to. Not the obligation to, but the right to. All right? There's a guy in Seattle that made a killing. He went down through the commercial section and the main drag in Seattle, and he optioned a whole bunch of buildings. I think he made a couple $100 million. So he went into the owners of all these high-rises and said, how much for your building? What do you think your building's worth? What would you take for it? He says, great. And I think he tied it up with like $1,000 a piece. But he says, I want an option to purchase, that building at this price. Then he went over to China, found a lot of money over there, and the Chinese came over and bought all those buildings at a huge, huge markup. And so a big deal. I learned about this in Burns, Oregon, of all places. Remember the little town, 3,000 people, 130 miles from nowhere with more cows than people? My banker was, Debbie was really cool, and she was like, I don't know, really young, maybe 37, 38. And she got an option on a ranch. And so she got, the option on the ranch was to buy this ranch for $1 million. And she sold that option for $2.4 million to some people from California. And so she collected $1.4 million, and then she got really creative, threw it into she did it inside of an IRA, and then she started taking distributions. So even in her 30s, she was getting money month by month, out of that. But there's some amazing things that you can do if you're creative. But you want to be the meat. You want to be the middle part of it, right? That's the important thing, is just to be the meat. And realize if you don't pick up anything else from this 2 hours that we're spending, you should pick up that there's a lot more out there than what you may have realized is available to you as an agent. That there is business sitting there that you haven't discovered or haven't contemplated yet. You know, that the power of leverage can take you wherever you want to go. You should also have learned that you can buy property with no credit and very little money down or no money down. Finding the deals is some work, especially in today's market, but I'm still finding them. I've shown you recent deals. You know, it's there, it's available to you, you can do it. I had a guy in his 70s that he's 70 years old, lost all his money to the IRS, and by 75 he made enough back to retire. You know, blew me out of the water. I mean, it's there's guys that are, you know, you can do it if you just use the right tools. The guys that I taught came here from Greece. And sorry, did I say 14,000? He's making 140,000 a month. So he came here, came to Salt Lake. I taught him about doing lease options. We're just talking about here, these sandwich lease options. So remember what happened in Greece during the downturn a few years ago? You know, the economy went to crap. They reached in, seized 40% of the savings of all the Greek citizens that was in their account to help pay the national debt. Wouldn't let you pull more than $100 a day out on a debit card. Okay, so bad deal. So he's like, I'm starving, can't pay my house payment, can't do anything. I'm an engineer, I'm moving to Qatar. You know, well, the Middle East, you know, you can work, but you know, you're not making money on the same scale typically as you're making, you know, in the West or Western Europe. So he came and met with me before he did that, and I covered a few of these things with him, and one of them is lease options. So he went over there, and he said, I have been subleasing. I said, well, how many are you doing? And at one time I said, well, I've got 100 doors now, and I am leasing them out for $700 a month, and I'm subleasing them for $2,400. Figure that, you know, 100 doors. So 140, he said it's about 140,000 a month. So that's who I'm going to meet in March. And he made a big donation to my charity this last year. We fed almost 2,000 families over the last 7 or 8 months of 2020 in Nepal. So powerful tools, you know, and they work. So let's talk about commissions here really quick. Who likes commissions? I like them. It's nice. There's almost no risk. You know, brokers like to talk, oh, there's so much risk to be a broker. Yeah, whatever. The risk level is real low compared to the reward level. It's all about risk reward, right? And we got forms. We've had everybody vet those forms. You know, we're doing CE, everything else. It's awesome. Finger number 5, I'm always like, can I collect a commission? Because I'm not putting any money down and I'm getting paid, especially if I'm, you know, listing. You know, when I'm listing, it's great because I know I'm going to get paid. If I got a buyer, I'm going to have to work, you know. But in a buyer's market, it goes completely opposite. Oh, I got a buyer. Yeah, you know, I don't want any of those listings, but it's good. Sometimes it feels like, you know, zero commission. So I'm going to just cover a couple of things that might be useful to you as agents when you're negotiating with buyers and sellers, and that is, you know, when you're talking with when you're talking with buyers or sellers, you can actually pitch the zero commission. And nobody likes to do work for free and not get paid. But with buyers, they're not going to pay your commission, right? I mean, it's the seller, the seller's agent. Same thing with sellers. There's some things that you need to realize. So the guy that was the seller finance guy that we wholesaled, you know, the FSBO, the guy up there, the average for sale by owner property sells for 9% less than a listed property does. Why is that?
Say that again.
The average FSBO for sale by owner property sells for about 9% less than listed property does. Marketing. Realtors control the market. What's the first thing we do with our buyers when we pick up a new buyer? Get them qualified, right? Okay. We got qualified buyers that have money and credit and capacity to actually purchase. Also, the guy put that sign out on the corner. How many people are going to see the sign on the corner of, you know, 12th South and 15th East? Maybe a couple thousand over a week or two driving by. How many people are going to pay attention to it? Yeah, hardly any, right? But how many people are on the MLS? Thousands. So I actually took a house over here in White City. I knew the guy that lived there. His name was Malcolm, 85 years old. I walked over to him and I said, Malcolm, I'll sell your house for nothing. You're a good guy. I've known you for a long time. You're moving into assisted living. He says, well, I haven't done anything to it in 30 years. It's full of crap. I said, great. I'll have my guys come make you an offer. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, I'll sell your house for nothing. And because I didn't need the money, and he's a good guy, and I like him, an old English fellow, and I've helped him out a few times over the years. So anyway, we flipped that house. I bought it for $245, seller financing. He was really happy. I gave him $40,000 down on it because that's what he needed to move into assisted living. And then got the rest of his money when we sold it. Put $80,000 into it, and I swore that $400 was the very top price that I was going to get out of it. I was thinking it might have been $380, $390, and it was really nice. I put it on the market. I sold it for $454. The appraised value was $400,000. I had 4 people that said, we don't care. And so I had 4 offers that were between $450 and $454. And I took the one that said they'd close in 2 weeks, and they had cash. Now, would that happen if you put a sign out on a street somewhere? Because this is like on Opal Circle, so it's like, one street in off of Seagull Lily on a corner. Maybe 100 people a week are driving by it. Not going to happen, is it? So agents control the market, all right? So you can say that. You can say it's really not going to cost you anything. Because if you try to do it yourself, you're going to lose 9%. You're not going to get these high values that are going right now. So I'm going to be free. And there's another thing that I like too. It's a scaled commission. So we can't do what's called a net. We can't do I'm licensed in Oregon as well. It's a you can't do like a net commission in Utah. But what you can do is you can do a tiered commission. So if we sell your house at this price, my commission is X, and we know that we're going to sell here, right? And when I'm in there negotiating, they say, well, how much do you think your house is worth? Well, $400,000. Well, how much do you think it's? Well, probably $450. And I'm thinking, yeah, I can justify the $450 from the comps, right? But in reality, it's probably going to sell for $500 because that's what's been going on, right? So how about I take 2% on the listing if it sells where you think it is at $400,000. And then I can tier that up. And if it sells at $410, I get X. If it sells at $420, I get X, because I got a pretty good idea that it's going to sell at X. And you can actually end up with 3.5 or 4% doing that. Because most people are concerned about what they're going to take, right? And so as long as I solve what they're going to take out, they don't care what they pay me. They do care initially, but if I'm 2%, I already look better than everybody else, right? But I know for darn sure that it's going to sell at $420, and I'm going to make my 3%. So if I get 20,000 more, then I'll come up to 3%. And then if it really gets out there, how about another $1,000 bonus or another $5,000 bonus if I get you another 15,000 on top of that? So remember, this is real estate. Everything is negotiable. Start looking at those things in a different way, okay? When, we talk about refer a friend, when you, the principles are the same with agents as they are with people, okay? So with agents, it's really good. At Equity, we pay out about $727,000 a year on commissions. I'm sorry, profit sharing. So somebody brings over their, friend comes over to Equity. Every time they close, we pay them $100 every time they close, right? Our top guys make $50,000 a year. Now, Eric is my favorite story on this. So Eric brings his girlfriend over. They break up 3 or 4 months later. She closes like 3 a month for about 7 years until she gets married and moves to Washington State. It's like $25,000, right? So referring a friend is a good thing, but when you're a real estate agent and somebody says, well, I've got a friend or I've got a cousin or I've got somebody else, right? you're all going, oh my gosh, it's the friend deal. It's the brother, sister's, cousin's husband deal, you know. I'm going to have to get past that, right? So we want to make sure that we're moving past that. There's a lot of things you can do. And I'll go through just a couple of those because I found that most agents, even the experienced ones, don't think about them. One of the good arguments is, well, you know, in a real estate transaction, your agent becomes your partner. And so he's going to be privy to your financial information, your credit, you know, everything else. Most of the people that I've worked with, this is true, remember I never lie, most of the people that I've worked with have had a friend or family member that was in real estate. Is that true? Everybody knows somebody in real estate, right? Friend or family member. But here's some of the reasons that they have chose me to work with them, and I feel very honored. One is that they don't want them to see their financial information. You know, I just helped my doctor buy a house, and I know he makes $450,000 a year. You know, but he doesn't want his family or his friends to know that, right? Okay. The second one is he a part-timer or is he a full-timer? I mean, that's one's easy, low-hanging fruit. But the big one is the money thing. Because people, for the most part, don't want people knowing how rich they are or how poor they really are. Because most people are like it says in the book, The Millionaire Next Door. Big hat, no cows, right? Fancy car, no cows, you know, no money, nothing. And they don't want people to know that. They just want people to see. You know, Utah is the land of the highest bankruptcy, the highest credit card overdraft, the highest bounce checks, the highest a lot of things. And I'm LDS, but it's because of the LDS church. And the reason is because you've got, everybody knows everyone. When I'm living in Oregon, I don't know my neighbors. I don't want to know my neighbors, right? I go home, I throw up the drawbridge, throw the crocodiles out on the moat, and, you know, and I'm there enjoying myself. But I've got like the visiting teachers and the Sisters from Relief Society and, you know, the Boy Scouts, and everybody's coming over to looking at your house, and so everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses. You know, and I drive like a 17-year-old car because it's just great. And so I get, you know, somebody in my ward, the bishop's Rick is like, well, Randall, wouldn't you like that new Duramax diesel? And after about 2 weeks of me going to church every Sunday, wouldn't you like the new Duramax diesel? I'm like, dude, you just bought a Duramax diesel. You know, do you like it? Well, yeah, you know, the payments are like $1,300 a month. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, right? I says, well, when you can afford anything, you don't have to. You know, and that was my take. I was like, I could afford a Lamborghini, I can pay cash for it, but I don't have to. So why, you know, why do it? But that's the mentality, right? And so people don't want people to know, here in Utah especially, but anywhere, what their real status is, because most of the people we're helping aren't millionaires. They're people that want to look like millionaires. I lived in the Harvard-Yale area. I was a UPS driver flipping houses. My accountant lived in that area and did taxes for the entire state, which means everybody up in that area. And I told him once, I said, I'm moving. I just don't think I have enough money for these people, you know, that live up here, you know. I'm a blue-collar worker, and I'm, you know, flipping houses. He laughed, and he looked at me, he says, Randall, he says, you got more money than everybody up here. He says, I've done taxes for these guys for the last 20 years. Most of them, if they don't get paid it, they'd be out in the street in 2 months. And we had a big shock when the guy in the ward moved and they found out that he was actually renting and didn't own his house, you know, for in Princeton Avenue. So it's what it is. So play to that one hard. We're partners, you know. Most people work with me because they don't want friends or family members to see their intimate financial details. All right, big one. You know, most people, the next one is that, you know, people like to work with me because a lot of times their friends and families are part-time. You know, they're part-time, and a house represents the greatest single wealth point for most people in America. Okay? And they need the most money out of their house if they're selling. And so they want a full-timer, somebody who is fully invested in the market, fully dedicated, and on his game to make sure that they're going to get the most money possible. And if it's the buyer, it's like, well, you know, buyers want to get the best deal in the market, you know, and a part-timers, a lot of times, you know, the people work with me because they're part-time friends or brothers, sisters, mothers, cousins, brothers, husband, might not be able to help negotiate the best price or the best deal, and they end up paying more money that they don't have because for a buyer, it's out of pocket. You know, they're having to come out of pocket. So typically I can help them come up with less. And then, you know, the third thing might be they just want the best person to do the job. You know, they work with me because they want, you know, top two, and then they just want the best guy to do the job. Because you guys are all great people, right? You're all going to do a wonderful job. If you haven't done a lot of transactions, a few of you that were in the beginning, your broker's done a lot of transactions, hopefully, or somebody on your team has. I always tell my agents, I'm on your team, you know? So my team has done 1,000 transactions, you know? Borrow credibility. Don't lie, borrow credibility. And then leverage your team. If you can't get a hold of your broker and he won't help you through a transaction, there's a problem. Okay? Talk to him, go somewhere else, come see me. I'd love to have you. But really, really important. You know, learn to love what other people won't do. I remember looking at the NAR said that less than 1% of agents would knock doors. Okay? Who's knocked doors? Good. What's the worst experience what's the worst experience you've ever had, Blue Shirt?
I just had a guy say, get off my porch and get off my property, basically.
Sure. How much money do you think you've made off of knocking doors?
Tens of thousands.
Okay. Yeah. If it was $100, would you, if I said, I'll give you $100 if you let me kick you off my porch and tell you to get off my porch, would you do it? Absolutely, I would. Carlton Sheets, remember the king of late night, you know, real estate, said once that if it took you 100 no's to get to one yes, and the one yes is worth $10,000, which is probably an average commission these days, each no is worth $100. Okay. I had a guy say, well, didn't you see the no soliciting sign? And I could have argued and said, you know, well, you know, I'm not really soliciting, you know, whatever else. I just took my glasses off and I said, you know, I think I might need a new prescription because I totally missed that one. The guy laughed, we had a conversation, I helped him out. You know, use humor. You know, humor goes a long way.
Those are my favorite doors to knock because they'll buy a no soliciting sign, they'll buy everything.
Yeah. That's why. You know, isn't that true? You want to keep trying and adjust course. Winners never quit and quitters never win. All right? My neighbor Dane. Dane would have been just another flunky at 50 grand a year if he hadn't continued into the 6th month or the 7th month. And he made $135,000 that year between the 7th and the 12th month. Okay? Big deal. You know, always keep trying. But keep adjusting course, okay? You're on the motorcycle of life. I'd say you're the plane, but we'll call it the bike of life. Everybody's probably ridden a bike. We're on the bike of life. It's pretty hard to sit in one place and balance. It takes a whole lot of work, right? As long as you're moving, you can correct course. And if you see me on my bike, that's kind of what it looks like, as an old man shaking his way down the street. But you can always correct course. So when you're doing all of these different things, you know, correct course, get better, scripts, learn some scripts. You know, my favorite script, number one, when people ask me, what is the number one money-making script? I go back to this. I'll share 2 of them with you. Hopefully you're already doing them. 66%, which is 2/3 of all salespeople, real estate agents included, leave the appointment without asking for business or the sale. They don't close. Okay? So, I always tell my agents, I say when you're doing your calls, because it's a numbers game, you have to ask for business. And I don't care how, you know, if you thought about buying or selling a house, or you thought about buying a house in the last 60 days, whatever it is, shut up, let them answer. They're going to say no 90% of the time. And that's great, because now we're going to leverage their 250. The average person knows at least 250 people. Okay? Funeral homes run off of that, caterers run off of that. The average people know at least 250 people. So now, this is the one that you want to turn your phones on and record or write down. And it's 5s, I like 5s. And this is what it is. This has made more money for me than any other script I've ever used. Who do you know among your family, friends, neighbors, people at church or work that have talked about wanting to buy or sell a home. Family, friends, neighbors, church, or work. And you have to do it just like that. You can't take any liberties with this one. And the reason is you got to walk them through the hallway, like school. You got to open the neighbor door, church door, the friend door, the family door, the work door. I had a couple agents. One of them, James Dixon, came to me and said, "Randall, I've been knocking for a week and I'm just not working that well." And I said, "What are you saying? What's your script? What are you telling people?" I said, "Okay, so you're using a two-for script." Well, because when you're knocking doors, you're not talking to very many people. A lot of people aren't home, etc. So I want to leverage the people I do talk to get to their 250, right? So I gave him the script and I said, "You got to do it just like this." So the next week he met with me. I said, "James, how did it go?" He said, "I picked up 2 clients." He said, I met with this young couple and I said, "Who do you know among your family, friends, neighbors, people at church or work?" And they said, "Well, my dad's friend Rod says he wants to buy a house." And he said, "Well, do you think I could talk to him?" "Oh, sure, he's a great guy. Here's his phone number." Sold him a house. Okay? So people take the lazy path out. Everybody's lazy. Okay? People are sheeple. Follow the herd. It's the easiest thing to do. Don't do that. And don't let people do that. Because if you say, "Do you know anybody that wants to buy or sell real estate?" No. The answer is no. But when you say, "Who do you know?" Family, friends, neighbors, church, or work, you've pushed them into the room and made them look around to see who's there. Okay? So it's a lot of things. Practice makes better. We're going to actually be starting some script practice, William is. We're going to be starting it here the 1st of the month. And if you can, get some scripts, make them your own. That one you have to use pretty much like that. I've never had anybody with luck trying to modify it, but most scripts you can make your own. It's really good, but you want to think outside the box. And so I'm hoping that you remember that it's a numbers game. Often it's a marathon, not a sprint. It's how many people do you talk to. I always tell agents, if you talk to 50 people a week and you ask for business, you're going to do business every month. Some people are a lot better. Eric does it on probably 5 people a day or something like that. But it's a numbers game. Don't give up, and you can correct course, and then accountability. So what do we do every week, Kimberly?
We have an accountability meeting.
We have an accountability meeting. What do we do, Kim? Accountability meeting. Now it's interesting because most of my agents won't take advantage of that. Most people don't want to be held accountable. But there's a huge difference between those that are held accountable and those that aren't. Do I charge anything for it? No. What do? We set goals and then hold you.
Set goals, and you offer valuable suggestions and information.
And then we hold you accountable. How do we do? How many calls do we make? Those kind of things. It's important. You want to have somebody that holds you accountable, because I learned this years ago. Right here, I had a friend of mine. He's a venture capitalist now, but he started a business, and it was accountability business. He said, "Randall, I want to try this on you. It's $200 a month. You're going to send me a list of what you're going to do every week, and I'm going to hold you accountable. And if you don't get it done, I'm going to charge you an extra $20 for each thing that you don't get done." Well, it's about $450 a month, because I, very optimistic and overshot it. But I got 3 times as much done, and money started pouring in, business started pouring in. It was amazing how much I got done. So I have an accountability coach as well that holds me accountable. In fact, I need it so bad I have it on a daily basis. I hope that you guys enjoyed the 2 hours that we spent here. I hope it was a lot of new stuff, or at least some new things. A lot of times, if it's even just one new thing, it's enough to make a difference. It's enough to give you an edge. And then seriously, if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out. William, do you want to write the phone number down on the whiteboard, because my handwriting is totally illegible. But it's 801 502-8507 is my phone number. And if you don't get me, you can text me. Williams is 801-856-5139. And we'll put that out on the email. If you haven't signed in, We're going to put the disclosures for wholesaling that we use on that. And thanks for coming. Hopefully it was good. Any questions? Yes.
You had mentioned in your class that marketing for it, that you were gonna talk about how to save $1,100 in taxes.
Oh, $1,100 in taxes, yes, on every transaction. All right. How many of you are taking your commissions in your own name? Okay, a lot of people are doing that. All right, you're paying the 15.4% self-employment tax. So here's what you want to do, and I've asked hundreds of agents. Out of 500 agents, 400 of them are doing it the same way you are, so don't feel bad. You want to have a business entity set up that is taxed as an S corporation. Now you could use an S corporation, but there's more paperwork. So what I would suggest is setting up an LLC. I'm so glad you asked that. Thank you. Set up an LLC, but make sure you select the S Corp designation. Okay. So if you do it yourself, you can do it that way. It's not hard. Or you can have your accountant do that. Because then what happens is instead of that huge tax on the whole $10,000, I can claim $2,000 in wages. All right. Pay the 15.4% tax on the $2,000, and the $8,000 is capital distribution. So I'm going to save the 15.4%, or the $150 times 8, which is actually more than $1,100. $1,100 just sounds better in marketing because it's kind of an odd number. But hopefully you'll come to one of my marketing classes where we can help you get out there and stand out there and be noticed. Any other questions? I'm an open book. I'll answer anything.
So you do all these deals every year, and you don't keep all of them, right? You also assign.
Yeah, so I wholesale, I flip, and I do keep some.
So,
If you want to get rich, you want to hold
yeah.
because of leverage.
How do we get on your buyer's list?
A buyer's list. Well, you could contact William and get on that list, and we send stuff out as well. We send it out. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. It's funny because I sell, like most of the stuff I sell, the same 10 guys, but we have a list of people, and I do sell to my agents. So let me tell you how to get on the top of a wholesaler's list. Text them once a week. So if you text them every Monday and say, do you have any properties that you're wholesaling this week? They may have some or they may not. Right now it's tough, so I like to do 10 a month. I'm down probably 3 or 4 a month, maybe 5, just because it's a tough gig. But there's still a lot of money, in there, to do it. But it's good. Any other questions? Got any questions?
What avenue do you go to set up trusts?
Oh, an avenue to set up trusts. A lot of times you can go to an attorney. It'll cost you about $1,000 probably. I have agents that'll come to me, and then I'll spend an hour, because most title companies, unless I've shown them how, that's the only reason ours does it, is because I actually showed them how, but won't do it. So they'll come and I'll have them make a donation to our charity. And I'll give them a copy of the trust documents after spending an hour going over it with them. So thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Oh, one question. Sorry, I missed you.
On a seller lease option, do you establish the price at the beginning of the contract, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you set the price at the beginning of a lease option contract? Yes, that's typically what you do. So most of the time you're going to say, I have the option to buy the property on or before the expiration date. So if the lease is 3 years and I'm setting the price today, so if the price is $200,000 a day, I have the option to buy at 200 or 400 or whatever it is. Today's price within 3 years, but we're setting the price today.
Thank you.
So yeah, which is nice, especially if the market goes up 20 or 30%. Because I've actually helped a few people who've done a lease option that don't have the money to finance out, but they'll come to us, we'll give them the money, we'll buy it together, and then we'll make some money on it together. So.
On lease options, do they usually want a substantial amount down?
It really depends. Everything's negotiable. So sometimes it's 1,000, sometimes it's 500, sometimes it's just, it's a token amount. So here's the lease, and here's $100 to bind, the option agreement.
And do they normally give some of that rent back towards them?
They don't have to, but it's all negotiable. So when I'm negotiating for my client, the lessee, the person that's, the renter, I'm going to say, how about if we, make payments on time for this 3-year period? Will you credit, $100 per month towards the down payment? So remember, it's real estate. And if it's real estate, it's what? Negotiable, right? Yes.
So I have a lease option right now that is about to expire for my people that are in the house.
Yeah.
They've been great for 3 years.
Sure.
And our contract expires next month.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to buy.
Okay. Only 15% of lease options ever exercise.
So what would you do? And I guess would you give them another 2 years contract or just month to month?
So what's your position in it? Are you the renter?
I'm the
Landlord, the owner? Yeah, I go month to month. Yeah. Now, if I wanted to give them an option, I might give them an option thinking, okay, the market's going to go down, which I'm surprised it hasn't, but it's going to go down. I'm going to give them a 3-year option, based on, whatever value in exchange for more money. I might raise the rents. I could either say I want to lump some down, a few $1,000 or whatever to extend the option, or maybe I'll give you an option to purchase for an extra $150 a month, over 3 years. Because now I've just carved out another, $4,500, $5,000, right?
I don't want it to move out. I mean, that'd be great.
Yeah. So but yeah, if you go month to month. Is there another? Did I see another hand over there? Nope. Any of the girls in the back? Besides you, you've been really good. It's got to be question. It's your chance to ask questions. I get paid $1,000 an hour to coach business owners, so you might as well ask for free.
So do most lease options don't actually go to the full course because those people really never qualify for a loan?
Yeah, they don't qualify for a loan, or things change. But and I haven't looked for about 4 years, but it was 15% 4 years ago of options actually exercised.
I knew it was a low amount, but I always just
Yeah.
assumed the people that did that probably never will qualify for a loan.
Like-
They just aren't good with their money.
Right. So that's why I like a sandwich. If I can cash flow, it's like a rental, right? And then I have the option to buy if the market goes like this, or if the market goes like that, then I don't have to buy. And I can make a little money. But it's just, real estate for me is about being in a lot of places a lot of the time. So if I've only got one trick, I can only be in one place at one time, right? But if I've got 5 tricks, that's the difference, is being a solutions wizard versus a one-trick pony, right? But I mean, it's a great business. You can help a lot of people out. I've never taken advantage of anybody. Never had anybody even claim that I did. And yet I've done some incredible deals, and just help people out. And I've had deals where I bought the property, sold it, made a ton of money, went back and gave them a check for 30 grand because I was like, I think I bought it a little bit too low. I made more money than I thought, And they love you when that happens because do I have to do it? No. I've got miles of disclosures, I've got everything else, but it's karma, it's God, it's all of that, and it's just try to be decent. If you try to help people out, you help yourself, and I think that's, for me, it's a big deal because they're just like that old dude up on 15th East. He didn't want to sell with an agent no matter what, and he wasn't going to run an ad, and he wasn't going to put it on the MLS. He wasn't going to do anything. He just put a sign in the yard. I'm just going to sell it here. And this is what I want. And okay.
And how many FSBOs do you think actually sell without working with an agent?
You
Not
know,
to do the buyer's side at least, I would imagine.
so Mark Twain made a comment once that I think is probably pretty true, especially when it comes to NAR. There's lies, damned lies, and statistics. I can remember when NAR said, it's going to change in the third quarter. It's going to be blue sky. I can remember when the market crashed 2008. It's going to, end of the year, it's going to be back to normal. In 5 years, we had a steady downturn. And it was like every year you'd go to the breakfast, the forecast breakfast, and it'd be like, oh yeah, it's going to be the best year ever in real estate. Well, I made a ton of money because everybody was running out of the building and I was running in and buying property cheap, But But so that's hard to say. But I mean, how many will sell? The better question is how many of them will sell at value? You know, very few. You know, most of them lose value. I mean, they just do, because you don't have the biggest buyers. So I don't sell my own house on the MLS, never have. I sell every single one of my flips there. You know, every single one, because you get the most money there, right? And right now, today, maybe I would sell it on the MLS because who knows, it'd be maybe some crazy amount like $100,000 over what I thought I could get for it. But that's, you know, it's just kind of how it works. But you know, it's a great thing being an agent. You know, you get a chance to help people out. You get a chance to be honest. You can help yourself out. And the best advice I give to the old agents as well as the young ones: start buying rental property. You know, if you want to have a life, and you want to have money and not worry about it, buy rental property. Aunt Nancy is wonderful, but she was just an employee. Being an agent is not a business, it's a job. It's a business when you get to leave for a month or two and come back and you haven't lost any money. Okay? You know, you want to get that property in there, get that leverage starting to work for you, because that's how you make millions of dollars. You know, and you're going to need millions the way this hyperinflation is going to hit us, and you know, it's already, you know, hitting us, but get in there and be on the right side of that. You know, start buying that rental property and let it work. And people are like, I don't like to manage rental property. Well, I don't either. You know what the difference is between millionaires and poor people? Really, it's nothing. It's only one thing. Rich people do the things that poor people don't want to do. You know, and that's the thing that I would just tell you is hire somebody out. I don't manage I have my basement apartment. I don't even manage that one. You know, my property manager manages that one. If something goes on, they call the property manager. You know, that's kind of how I like it. It's the best money I spend every month. Any other questions?
Just one. Seller finance, lease option. Which one is your favorite and why?
Seller finance or lease option? Well, it depends on what's going on in the market. So seller financing is my favorite because I'm taking title, I'm getting tax benefits on it. So when I talk to my agents, you know, like some of the agents that are new, when I pitched you, I talked to you about cost segregation, you know, which is when I closed you on our call, you know, why you should come to Equity, right? And I talked, so cost segregation, fewer than 1% of accountants and fewer than probably 0.1% of agents are familiar with it. But what it means is if it's a rental property or anything that has to do with a commercial use, you can get 30 to 35% year one tax write-off. So if my client, go ahead and blank the screen, William. If my client bought a house, so I had a client that bought a fourplex for $400,000, okay, up in Ogden, and owned it for 2 weeks of last year. Okay, so the last 2 weeks of December. But it was rented, it was in commercial use. So he's able to get a $145,000 tax write-off right now for only owning it for 2 weeks of last year. It's cost segregation, right? So when you're owning property, the advantage is, and so the reason I'm tying this back into this, remember I said leverage knowledge, leverage your broker, etc., is if you own rental property, you can take advantage of cost segregation. If you've got a lease option, you can't. Okay? So the difference on an $800,000 property being held for 4 or 5 years using cost segregation versus straight line depreciation is about $240,000 in your pocket. You know, so it's a powerful deal. There's a lot of tools. As a real estate professional, which means you're 19 hours a week or more in the business, you can actually, under the CARES Act, go back. So let's say you're in the, I don't know, 15, 20% tax bracket. That $145,000 would be about $45,000. You can go back under the CARES Act and get a check from the government today for $45,000. Powerful. Or your clients, so instead of being the agent, it's like everybody else, pick me, you know, I'll help you buy your house or, you know, your rental or whatever else. You can say, how'd you like a 6-figure write-off, you know, on your rental, right? And you're not a real estate professional, but here's what it's going to do for you. You're not going to pay any taxes for the next 2.5 years or 2.7 years in that one, on your rental, on the rents that you get, because we're going to do cost segregation. It's a huge deal. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Go ahead.
Is that for commercial only?
No, it's any property put to a commercial use. So if I rent my basement out, is that in a commercial use? It is. Yeah, it's single family residences. Yes.
Well, that cost segregation is a relatively new concept, at least for those of us who haven't been in the business. It sounds like a great deal, but what are you really saving? At some point in time, you sell that property, you gotta pay on it.
Yeah,
You're not avoiding the tax.
So
how is that?
that's a great question. So it's been around for a while. It's just people haven't known about it. So I've been teaching it since 2006. Okay, so here's the difference. On an $800,000 property, the difference of doing straight line depreciation versus cost segregation is $240,000 in your pocket. You will walk away with $240,000 more in your pocket. Now it used to be, they've changed the laws over the last 2 years, so that's what it is now. It used to be that there was no recapture tax, meaning, and so I got into this.
Straight line?
Yeah, it's on cost segregation. So I got into this back in, I was helping professional athletes. So I had a quarterback for the New York Jets. Randall, I'm making a crap ton of money. I needed some write-offs, right? So I said, great, I've got a deal for you. I went down to Saratoga Springs where I bought my deal. I said, let's buy this house. It's $300,000, cost $1 million to build, because they were selling the threes. $1 million to build. It's rented out for a year. You can take a 80 or 90% year one tax write-off, which he did. The kitchen alone was $100,000. So back then, you took that entire write-off and no 25% recapture like there is with straight line depreciation. But now your recapture is on a scaled basis as well. And so if you look at, William, what's that? It's meetwithequity.com. So if you go to meetwithequity.com, I've got a website that I've used for recruiting agents and whatnot. And what's the tab on it? Is agent?
Actually, the better website's Agent Lifestyles.
Agent Lifestyles, sorry. Agentlifestyles.com. And if you go in there and see, there's a section on cost segregation, one on seller financing for an hour. I spent an hour on each one, but it'll run you right through the different scenarios. But you save a lot of money.
So you're saying that the football player, although he saved $240,000 that first year, at this point in time, you're saying that he's going to have to pay that back, or he's going to have to pay that based on a...
Yeah, he sold the property, so he didn't have to pay anything back. So right now, if you have rent, yeah. But now they've changed it over the last 2 years. It's changed. So straight line depreciation, there's a 25% recapture tax, okay? But there is a recapture using cost segregation, but it's not the same. It's scaled because some of the components, like I can write off the walls, the lawn, the fence, the lights, the carpet, part of the plumbing and electrical, part of the heating, a lot of these different components. Well, they've got finite lifestyles, right? So meaning that on a scale, and the IRS has a scale out there of like, this is the lifestyle for these components, right? So if it's a 10-year component and I own the property for 5 years, and I wrote off $100,000, well, all of a sudden, now I'm only paying taxes on 50. It's a big deal. Go listen to that one. It's about an hour long. I'll walk you through it. Go ahead.
I was just curious if any of that changes if it's in a 1031.
No, you can still use you can do cost segregation in 1031.
Yeah, but then you wouldn't. That would change it.
It's different.
You would exchange and not have to. You would defer until you
Yeah,
sold.
yeah. I don't like 1031s personally. There's a couple of reasons. I talked to my CPAs, like, Randall, you don't save any money. Okay. Most of your money on real estate, on rental real estate, is not on cash flow. People are like, and this is personal experience, President of the Investor Association, all my friends, they're like, look, we put about as much into it as we got out, repairs or whatever, over 10, 15 years. It's from appreciation, okay? So cash flow can be good, and yes, I've got one that's cash flowing $1,000 a month, it's nice, okay. But in reality, the real money is in the appreciation, And so that's, did that answer your question?
So
Yeah.
cost segregation doesn't even apply to somebody who's got an existing piece of property they've owned for 10 years and they've been depreciating in a straight line. They can't convert to.
Well, actually,
It's gotta be on new purchases?
well, no, it's not. It's helpful. So I had a property in Logan. I bought it 5 years ago. I sold it last year. Cost segregation done after the fact saved me $14,000 in my pocket.
So you did convert to cost segregation after the
Yeah,
purchase of the property?
yeah, I did. So cost segregation authority is typically who I use.
This is interesting, because I brought this up, not this year, but a couple of years ago, to my existing accountant on the real estate that I own. And this was when I had just barely heard about cost segregation. He didn't have any concept about it, and he just heard about it and said, no, that's not gonna.
1% of the CPA Association, when I looked, it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I was teaching a class, I was like, I wonder how many CPEs are aware of this. 1% were aware of cost segregation with respect to residential real estate. They were aware of it if it was a hotel or a gas station or something else where they componentize, stuff, but less than 1%. And that's the big deal. So I used to do the study myself, go through all the hassle. I was like, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to go out there and do it. It's too much hassle. Cost seg, they'll do it for, I think I had them do one. I had them do one in Park City for me. So I had a $3 million build up there. And I couldn't get the full 35%, but I think we got like 800,000. So, I mean, Scott Wilkie. So, Wilkie, W-I-L-K-E-Y. Scott, yeah.
So your concept is that an existing piece of real estate can be converted and used, this concept, if you.
Yeah, so this works best. This works best if it's one that you just purchased, one that's been remodeled,
Right.
okay, or it's a new build, okay? If you've held it for 10 years, I don't know what the value would be other than I held mine.
A lot of the value of those items.
But I held mine for, like I said, 5 years, sold it, went backwards, and it was a $14,000 difference of money in my pocket. So I don't know how it is for everybody, but it's a pretty powerful deal. Justin Puchar, I taught him how to do it, and he said he did 12 properties last year. Didn't pay any taxes and made a lot of money. It's a powerful deal.
There is a company that's out there that's approached me that says, look, that's what they do. They do what we're talking about. And of course, they charge you a fee to do it. So it's like.
Well, they should give you, so Eric Oliver is with Cost Seg Authority, and usually they'll give you a quick look and say, this is where we think you'll be at. And they don't charge you anything for it. Yes.
If I own a rental property, could I sell it to my husband cheap and start over and do this process?
No, I don't think so. I think there's got to be a fork in the tree, but you might be able to sell it to an entity, and have the entity write it off.
But if it's your own entity, then.
Yeah, you might be able to do it. I'd talk to Eric on it because the law's changed over the last couple of years. There's been incremental changes, just like under the CARES Act where you can go back in and take a check out. So it's like on the 1031 exchange. So number one, I didn't fully answer that the way that I wanted to. I got distracted, squirrel. But I don't find good deals with the 1031 because you got a limited, you got a 6-month window, right? You got to identify, especially in today's market, it just flat sucks, right? So I want a deal. So I want to be able to take my money and go put it into a deal where I'm already making money right from the purchase, because you make your money when you buy. It's not, when somebody asks me, well, what does Randall look for? I'm looking for at least a 25% cash on cash return, bare minimum, on whatever I purchase. Sorry, the 1031 exchanges, a lot of those aren't meeting that criteria. And so you're limited on what you can do there. Now, a better solution for me would be to probably take your IRA and purchase a property or your rental property in an IRA, okay? Do it in a Roth, purchase it in an IRA, rent it out. You can do the, cost saving, whatever else you can do on it. And then you can do one of a couple of things. You can move into it and live there for 2 out of 5 years and sell it tax-free. It's been blessed. Okay, there's nothing. Or you can take a couple of those. If you're married, you married? You can't sell, okay. So if you're married, take 2 of those, put them into a bigger house in a nicer area that you want to live in, rent it out for a year and a day, because I think it has to show up on 2 years' tax returns. And then you can move into it. Do the same thing, take the $500,000 married, you know, the exclusionary.
In that 1031 exchange, you know.
Yeah, just keep rolling with it.
Way to go with it.
Yeah, just keep rolling with it.
Suggested they may be a little bit.
Yeah, because it's, I mean, even in today's market, there's good deals. I mean, you saw the one that we just bought in Rose Park for $250 and sold it for $475. That's, you know, I can't do that in an IRA because I'm going to have to you know, you understand where I'm not an IRA, but a 1031, because I've got, and people are, well, you could do a reverse. It's just too much mess. I have as much money as my partner does, and he does 1031s, and I don't, and he hasn't been divorced, so, yeah.
One more quick question, and don't take a lot of time.
Sorry, she had,
Oh, you can
she,
open my
yeah,
head.
yeah,
Sorry,
she
go
was,
ahead.
So you could do a reverse 1031.
yeah. Yeah, but there's so many moving parts, and it's still, you're dealing with some time limits, like, okay, I'm found this one, yes, I'm buying this one, but now I'm going to go back and sell this one. It's just I haven't found it to be advantageous. You know, and I asked my accountant, and, you know, and he's been somebody I've trusted, and he's done a lot of rich people's, you know, taxes, I guess, and he just told me, he says, man, you don't really save anything. And I was like,